Hello and welcome back to the All Out Brits Podcast, the podcast where we send the house on all things NFL from across the seas here in sunny old England. And it's not just a welcome back for yourselves, it's a welcome back for us too. We took a little break. We went to explore the market in the off season, in the free agency, but we're back. We've selected our teams. We've committed and we've committed back to the podcast and committed back to the people as well. And as always, the man to commit to all things All Out Brits isn't just myself. It's the wonderful, beautiful man sat right there, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. How are you doing, my friend? How have you been? And how excited are you for everything we've got to talk about today?
I'm really excited, mate. I've missed this. So we just said before, it's been so long, or it feels like it's been so long since the pod's been out. But I'm sure we're going to be back better than ever, ready to talk you through all things NFL, like you were saying, bro. And yeah, it's been a really exciting and really interesting free agency to kick off the season, really. There's been lots of interesting things, lots of shocks. And how active has it been over the first 3 days? It's been active, bro. I've not seen an off-season start like this in a long, long time. So hopefully the season delivers and it's equally as exciting as all the moves that we're seeing. But, bro, how have you been? What have you been doing to keep yourself busy in the little break that we've had? You've been testing the waters with World Podcasts? What have you been doing?
I've been trying my best, mate. I think I've been trying to learn how NFL works. We got a few comments that us Brits didn't know what was going on. We still don't know what's going on, but we're still here. We're still trooping through it. And we also, we got some deliveries as well, didn't we, mate? I think we've got some new additions to the podcast. Why don't you show the people what's been added to the podcast?
So it's already on your head, bro. And unfortunately, if you have a dodgier hairline than you and one like me, you might have to wear it on the front. All Out Brits.
Oh, I like that. You know what? We'll spin it forward for everybody. Look at that. The All Out Brits hat. We're looking good. We had a few comments asking us to get new hats. I say us, I say me. So this is hence why we're back with a different hat, a different look now. Look, Barnett's all over the place. What a start. Messy, this, mate.
I don't know if I'll suit a hat, but if you're better looking than I am, then I'll tell you what, you probably would suit these absolutely sexy garments. And I'll tell you what, Talon, they have been saying you need a new hat. Oh, it just doesn't suit me at all. They have been saying that you need a new hat. So this could be potential to be a season-long head garment. How does that make you feel?
I know, I'm excited, mate. And if anyone else is just as excited as us, just let us know. Maybe we can get a few batches of orders in for the people. But speaking of batches of orders, teams have been putting in their orders for loads of different players in the free agent market. And today, as free agents ourselves, uncommitted men as ourselves, besides from the podcast, we're going to be talking about all the different players that have now committed to different teams in this off-season already. We'll give them a grade because I think that's what the Americans do, and we might as well just copy them, don't you think, Mr. Greenwood? And it's been a very, very interesting start with all the drafts yet to go ahead. But should we talk about the draft, actually? Obviously, we had a few recruits, Caleb Williams and a lot of the other quarterbacks who decided not to participate in those. So we saw a lot of the sort of, talents that didn't really expect to be drafted high in JJ McCarthy and a few others like that. Even Sam Hartman had a good showing as well. We saw them get a bit of hype around them and sort of upgrade their draft stock and maybe drop the others. But we also saw a lot of this defense and O-lineman and D-lineman looking absolutely stacked, looking absolutely dangerous. I don't know about you, but I think teams are a bit more interested in that than the QB market than we thought originally.
Absolutely, mate. And there's obviously pros and cons to going to the combine. If you go to the combine, you've got the opportunity to show your skills, show your talent and your athleticism and everything like that. But I can understand what the QBs at the top of the market are thinking. Your Caleb Williams, your Drake May, your Jaden Daniels. Yeah. By not throwing and not going to the combine, they're not showing off their weaknesses, which could potentially fall their draft stock. You're looking at it's pretty much locked 1, 2, and 3 for Williams, May, and then Jaden Daniels to go in the draft. If I'm Caleb Williams, why would I want to go to the combine and potentially have an absolute stinker, throwing to receivers that I've never thrown to before, with the potential of then lowering my draft stock and going 2, 3, God forbid, even lower than that, when I can do absolutely nothing, stay where I am, and I'm still going to go number 1 overall. I think it would be silly for him to go to to go to the combine in that respect. And also on the flip, you've had Jaden Daniels coming out and saying, well, if I go to the combine, not as many people are going to come to my pro day at LSU. Yeah. So by getting people to come to his pro day, all the receivers, they're also getting showcased. So the scout not only looking at Jaden Daniels and how free he throws, but they're also looking at who he throws to and the receivers and the tight ends. And it gives them a little bit of a showcase to showcase their skills and then potentially get them onto a roster. So I think it's actually a really clever move from the three at the top. But the other QBs who like you mentioned, your JJ McCarthy's, they showed up as well. And I think that's really exciting. So it just proves that no matter where you go in the draft, obviously last year, Bryce Young went number 1 overall. How did he do? CJ Stroud stood up and delivered. So draft doesn't mean everything. The best quarterback of all time didn't go until the 6th round. So come on, the draft isn't everything. The combine is absolutely nothing but I just think it's for speed. And what does speed mean in the NFL, can I say, Taryn? What do you think speed is?
Doesn't mean much, Mal. Doesn't mean much. I mean, like, we've seen a lot of big boys who can't move very well, but have done very, very well. But we've also seen a lot of people, lose their trousers, drop out, and end up being great players in the NFL. So, like you said, it doesn't really matter too much in the end. But it was very interesting to see those decisions there. But we've seen some interesting decisions, actually, in the QB market of some of the stars that we've known and seen in the NFL. Let's just kick it off, mate. Let's talk about the big one, which for me, I find really, really interesting. That is Mr. Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, let's get this straight out. Let's get this sorted. I am flabbergasted by this trade, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I cannot believe that he's going to Atlanta. I saw his video today. He's a Minnesota man through and through. He's loved that franchise. He's loved the players he's played with. Obviously, going off with the Achilles injuries that he had, I'm really, really surprised that he's been given this opportunity in Atlanta. It's quite surprising. I've had a look around, and to be honest, let's start with it. I think this is a B-rated trade, if I'm perfectly honest with you. We've seen in the past few years, guaranteeing quarterbacks money. It's not really the way to go. And I think, we'll talk about Russell Wilson a bit later on, but the Broncos are going to be paying the price for guaranteeing money, for their QBs. And then we'll talk about that a bit. But Kirk Cousins, for you, what do you think? This move to Atlanta, we earmarked, maybe Justin Fields going over there, but Kirk Cousins.
I understand the trade in some respects, but I also have a lot of questions over it. Yeah. Now, the positives of this, obviously, Kirk Cousins, before he got injured, he was absolutely balling out in Minnesota. Yeah. And you had really one major weapon in Justin Jefferson. Now, on the flip side, he's coming to Atlanta. They've got a lot of young receivers, a lot of young running backs. And it's generally quite a young team. So having a senior veteran player coming into the side and having that experience, knowing when to make those difficult throws, when to make the easy throws, when to run the ball, that's going to be really, really valuable as a learning experience for the entire team. Even Desmond Ridder, who's going to be the backup, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how he develops under Kirk Cousins. But if I'm going to question the decision, which I think I'm more likely to do than actually praise it, he's a 35-year-old quarterback who's been given a 4-year contract, $100 million, which subsequently means that he will have earned more money than Tom Brady did in his entire career over less seasons. So a 35-year-old on a 4-year contract coming off an Achilles career-ending injury, or season-ending injury, I should say, I think he's daft. I think the length of that contract is so long for the age that he is. I could understand giving him a little 2-year contract, a little $50 million 2-year, or even a little bit further. You could push it to maybe even $70 million over 2 years. But a 4-year deal is a lot of money for a man that still has a lot to prove. He's been passed around the league more than bloody Brandon Cooks, so to speak. He's been passed around the league a lot. And can he find a home in Atlanta? And can he ultimately get the one thing that he's missing from his collection, which is a Super Bowl ring? Because he's been a very, very elite QB. But can Atlanta develop under him at quarterback over the next 4 years? Only time will tell. But those young players have got a lot to learn from such an experienced elderly gentleman that he is.
100%. And sports seems to be the only place where you can hurt yourself, go off, not do your job for a bit, and come back and earn more money than where you were before that. So absolutely wild. And I think on the other side of it, what does this mean for the Vikings? Obviously, they struggled really without him. And they've had some amazing sort of performances the past few seasons, but they haven't really managed to get over the line when they needed to. Either it was Cousins injured or Jefferson was injured or the D just couldn't stand up for him. But now, Jefferson mentioned that he only wanted to play with Kirk Cousins. Now he's gone. What does this mean for the Vikings? And what does this mean for Justin Jefferson as well? I don't think they want to trade him, but the man's got stock, and the man will not want to sit somewhere and waste his time with someone who isn't going to throw him the ball properly.
That he's an elite receiver, Justin Jefferson, absolutely elite. And if I'm Justin Jefferson, I'm thinking, have I got the opportunity to win a Super Bowl with that team?
Yeah.
No. Does he heck? I think the trade that makes sense to me is if they can somehow in Kansas City find a way to get that big receiver back. Obviously, I think we've all seen last season, as much as they're brilliant as they were, they missed that receiver. They missed that elite weapon, and they've been missing that since Tyreek Hill left. If it's true about the rumors about Kelsey leaving and retiring, could it be potentially that they go to a wide receiver instead of a tight end to fill the void that he will leave? But am I thinking in that Sam Darnold? Am I right in thinking Sam Darnold's gone the other way?
Apparently he's on the move to the Vikings. Not confirmed as of yet, but they are looking and getting him on a short-term deal, I think.
Which is absolutely mental. I think actually it's a 1 year, $10 million deal is what I'm hearing. And to me, that is just crazy. When you're losing the quarterback battle in San Francisco to a 7th round draft pick, and subsequently, even when you come in, you've thrown interceptions, you've not looked solid, and you're still managing to pay $10 million. It makes me question a lot, bro. It makes me question a lot. But it also will have a massive effect on those massive stars in Minnesota. We've seen big stars on the defense leave in Danielle Hunter, looking elsewhere because he just knows that the quarterback that they're going to be getting in isn't as good as the one that they had. So the opportunities for the entire team are going down the drain. But yeah, I just think it's a mental time. The QB market is completely blown up. And also the stock of some players, you mentioned how Fields would have fitted well in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But now I don't know what happens to him. I don't know where his position sits. I don't know how high his stock is at the moment. I don't know what the Bears do with him. There's a lot of questions now, and some questions that we didn't even know were about to exist. No. And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting time. And I think a lot of teams, though, have shown their hands about what they're going to do in the draft. So it's going to be really, really interesting, bro. It's going to be really exciting off season and a really exciting kind of mini camps that are going to come up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think another franchise where I think questions have been answered, they've been asked quite a bit, is over at the Broncos. Now, Sean Payton, it was very clear from the get-go, he did not want Russell Wilson as his QB. Obviously, they sit him towards the end of last season, even when they had the chance of making it to the playoffs. And to be fair, he played pretty well. He wasn't the Russell Wilson that people know and love, if you can say that people love him, but he was playing at a standard which was acceptable for the money that he's on. But now, making the move away and going to the Steelers. And again, I think this is an absolute steal of a trade because the Steelers aren't barely paying anything for him. The absolute brunt of it is going straight away back to the Broncos. This is like A++, as many pluses as you want to add to it. I can't really see the downside here. If you think about it, he's got, Kenny Pickett behind him. He's got Mason Rudolph there. Two sort of QBs. And I don't know if Trubisky's still there. He might still be. But he's had a real issue there at the Steelers, even though the D was standing up. I know Pickens was throwing tantrums every single week like a little girl. But they still had a few issues at quarterback. And now, Russell Wilson, if he plays at, 50%, 60% of his capabilities, maybe it gives, Pittsburgh a hope. And even if he plays further than that, they've lost absolutely nothing in the process of it because they're almost diminishing another team in the NFL and building up their chances. What a crazy, crazy trade that is for the Broncos. And do you think Sean Payton will be happy now, even though they've still got to fork out a fee for him?
I think it's $89 million that they're going to fork out now in space over the season. That's how much Russell Wilson is going to take up for the Denver Broncos whilst playing for Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think it's an absolute masterstroke by the Steelers organization to get a guy who they don't have to pay a penny for a couple of years. I think it's brilliant, especially considering those quarterbacks that you mentioned in Pittsburgh are very, very, very subpar. And that defense dragged that Pittsburgh Steelers team miles and further than any of us really thought it could go. So with that in mind, I think grading at quarterback is going to be fantastic for that organization. Mike Tomlin is a brilliant head coach. Never had a losing season in the NFL. Not made the playoffs in a few years though, and he's had some very disappointing ends to seasons. So can this be the trade that where you're looking at a time where they moved on from Big Ben in Pittsburgh? Can this be the man that brings back hope to Pittsburgh and brings back wins to Pittsburgh? We'll see in due course, but I think Russell Wilson's got nothing left to lose now. He has to throw everything he has into this Steelers organization. I'm sure he will, but he's got nothing to lose, a lot to prove, and a lot of haters that he needs to shut up. And I can't wait to see if Steelers country rides the way that Broncos country rode. Because if so, Mike Tomlin's having a losing season for the first time in a long time. But Sean Payton, he's going to be very, very happy man.
I mean, he's not going to be happy when he looks at his bank account, but he's a Russell Wilson down, so I think he'll be happy about that. We'll move on to another franchise who I think will be quite happy as well with their quarterback re-signing, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Mr. Baker Mayfield. Now, I think this is a B+, could be into an A. 100 million, I believe he's getting over 3 years. But what a season he had last year. He was incredible. I think he was unfortunate with how they sort of, ended off in the end. It was tough for the Bucs, but I thought they were formidable all season. They struggled against sort of the big guns, I thought. They just didn't have enough firepower to them. But that offense was dynamic. And then comparing that with the fact that Mike Evans is returning as well, incredible. Obviously, he's had multiple seasons now of 1,000+ yards. He is absolutely incredible. What does this sort of mean for Tampa now? Obviously, there was talk about, the issues that they're going to have with Brady leaving. But for me, I think this Tampa team could really be a threat because they seem to be having it all together now. And obviously a few draft picks, and we don't know who they could trade him for in the next few months as well. But I think this is a team that really is sort of pulling together, and they could become a contender with, as we mentioned, there's so many disjointed teams at the moment, and they're trying to fill all these gaps. But Tampa pretty much had the answers last season. They haven't really lost that much as of yet. So I think they've done really well, and these two acquisitions and re-signings are big for Tampa Bay, don't you think?
Absolutely, mate. And you saw the back end of last season. They were giant killers. They played some brilliant football. Obviously, in the playoffs, they bet Philadelphia and they pushed what was one of the best Detroit Lion teams that we've ever seen all the way in the playoffs. Yeah. And I think only one score down in the end. Yeah. Absolutely superb from Baker Mayfield, and he deserves the money that he's been paid. Finally, that redemption arc is completed for Baker Mayfield. He's the player that we all thought Johnny Manziel was going to be, but in his own right, he's Baker Mayfield, and he's brilliant. And I love it for him. I think Tampa Bay is now a really exciting team, like you said, with Mike Evans going back as well. He's going to have another 1,000-yard receiver season coming up. But even that defense, it's not got worse. And this is one thing that a lot of teams have done this season. They've got worse. And it's not always about improving. By keeping Baker and by keeping Mike Evans, that connection's going to improve. So the team's going to get better. And by keeping a team together, you're not going to get worse. It's impossible to get worse. So it's not always about kind of getting additional players in from the outside. It's about keeping and retaining those players. And that's what that organization has done brilliantly. So for me, those two moves are an A+, bro. I think that they are absolute steals considering the entire market and the entire rest of the league. I think if Tampa had gone into the season without one of those, let alone without two, which was the threat at one point, we would have been having a very, very different conversation about Tampa Bay. But going into the season now, with Baker under center and Mike Evans on the outside, it's a really exciting time in Tampa Bay.
100%. And those are sort of the big QB moves we've seen at the moment. But there's two here that I've had a look at, and I'm really scratching my head at them. One man is Gardner Minshew. It's a man that we talked about before on this podcast. Obviously, he had a great season with the Colts, came in when he was required. And he did really, really well. And we said, was he going to get an opportunity? And he has, going to the Raiders. Obviously, it's tough for them. Probably going to miss out on 2-time Super Bowl winning, legacy holding, great quarterback, great looking man in Jimmy Garoppolo. But we won't talk about all the bad things he's done. But Gardner Minshew, again, very interesting, I think, for the Raiders. And I don't know how I feel about this. I think for him, it's a B+, A+ move. But for the Raiders, I don't know how I feel about it. I think Davante Adams was quite clear. He wanted elite QBs thrown to him. He was not sticking around if that was the case. Obviously, I think they might be losing Hunter Renfrow as well. So that offense, sputtering a bit. And I think as well, you trusted Aiden O'Connell. And I think they realise he hasn't got it all that in him. And so they're looking for a QB. But again, quite surprised they didn't go for somebody else. Maybe, again, a Justin Fields is available. That, a dynamic offense there. Gardner Minshew doesn't really offer that dynamic sort of nature. He did show it in parts, but in a sense, 10 million, you're not really risking that much. But do you think, that's a wise move for the Raiders when you thought that, again, they were going to become this refresh franchise? I know Caleb Williams said he wanted to go to the Raiders. He was not interested. He just wanted to go to the Raiders because of the assets that they have there on defense and on the offensive side of it. So Gardner Minshew, he's almost like a first Pokemon evolution of Aaron Rodgers, really. We haven't really seen him like fully grow into it, but this could be his time here in Las Vegas, don't you think?
Potentially, or we have the big lights of Las Vegas going to distract him. I think that's why Caleb Williams wanted to secretly go. The city itself, all the poker that can be played, the roulette table spinning around, and God, I think that QB kind of carousel is going to keep going in Las Vegas. Because for me, I think they brought him in not to be a starter, but to be kind of a teacher and to provide a bit of competition to Aiden O'Connell. You got to think Aiden O'Connell's a young man. He's only had one season in the NFL, really, where he's been able to showcase his skills. And I think by bringing in an older QB, I think a lot of people overestimating how good Gardner Minshew actually is. I think Minshew Mania was fantastic at one point when he was in Jacksonville, and he did the job at the back end of last season in Indianapolis. But I think they've, as an organisation, have made a statement and a commitment towards Anthony Richardson and moving away from having that more senior backup. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in Indianapolis. But on the flip side of that, in Las Vegas, I don't think it's a good move. I really don't. I think you need to upgrade at the quarterback position, but you don't do it by getting a backup that's going to push your starting quarterback all the way. I think he's going to be a good teacher, but I think that's all he's going to be. I don't think it's a big move. I don't think it's an exciting move. And I think it's a move that ultimately is going to see another 6-win season for the Las Vegas Raiders, unfortunately.
We're paying $10 million for a year for a teacher. Britain could never, mate. Britain could never. Another QB who, again, baffling. Marcus Mariota over to the Commanders. Now, number 2 pick with the Commanders.
I like this trade. I really like this trade.
I put this down as a C. I looked at it and was like, what on earth is going on over there? Go on, tell me, what do you think?
I love this trade. You see all the best quarterbacks in the league now, bar a couple. When I say all the best, I mean the best, Patrick Mahomes. Why is he so good? It's because he got to sit and learn for a year behind Alex Smith. Now, Washington, who are they going to draft in the draft? They're going to draft Drake May. Let's be honest. Then Caleb Williams is not falling to them. So Drake May at number 2 is going to be the person that they draft. And with Marcus Mariota now there, they have another elderly teacher who Drake May can learn from. But also, he's not forced to start day 1. Is Drake May now? He can sit for a couple of weeks and learn about the NFL, learn about the game, learn more about that offense, see what makes it click. Because Marcus Mariota isn't that bad of a quarterback, like your Gardner Minshew, in my opinion. I think Mariota's a little bit better. He's a bit more dynamic. He can run the ball as well. And also Washington themselves, they've gone away and signed Austin Eckler at running back, again making that offense that little bit more exciting. Tyler Biadasz as well at centre is going to be a fantastic move to shore up protecting Drake May potentially. So I think things are going in the right direction now for the Washington Commanders. They've had a few bad years, but for me, I think this is a B+ move from them. I think it's a very safe move. You're not giving him loads of money. You're not going to be demanding much from him. It's the rookie that you're going to get to learn from, Marcus Mariota, which to me, that's the guy that's going to run your franchise, and it makes sense to me, does the trade. So I think giving it a C, Taron, is a little bit harsh, but
I just feel for Sam Howell, bless him. He's just, that's it. What do you think that means for Sam Howell? Because for me, if someone said to me, right, big boss man's coming in and we've got number 2 pick in the draft, see you later, pal, pack your bags and see you somewhere else. Because it does not seem like Sam Howell's been given the confidence to be, handing the starting role at this point.
I think Sam Howell is going to be a good backup somewhere, in my opinion. He threw a lot of yards last season,
Yeah.
but he also wasn't very, very productive with the offense. It was quite a deceptive stat that I thought, because the offense looked static, it looked frail, it looked weak at times, and it got beaten up on a lot by some quite weak defenses. Yeah. So I think moving on from Sam Howell is a smart decision. And some team down the line, I think there's going to be a career for Sam Howell. Retract what I said about him being a backup. There's going to be a career for Sam Howell somewhere. I can see him being sort of a Baker Mayfield redemption arc, something like that along the way. Because I love watching him play, to be honest with you, because he'll either be the best quarterback in the world on his day, but he's not on his day a lot, so I think he's more likely to be garbage. But if he can find that balance, I can see him learning from a quarterback for a couple of seasons, going somewhere maybe like a New York Jets, sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for a little bit, or even potentially somewhere else, going to San Francisco, even learning from Brock Purdy, and seeing how he plays football, and then having the opportunity to start. That's more what I can see him do.
I mean, you might have to check out his back, because the amount of time he spent on his back last season, the amount of sacks he took, might need a chiropractor to come sort him out, or a physio. What do you think, mate?
Not chiropractors, bro. They do not encourage autonomous care. It's all about the physios. They encourage you to self-care and
right, set him off now.
The skills. Right. Chiropractors rely on you and take all your money. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah,
it sounds like Sam Howell to me. Yeah. We'll move on to a different market, and that is the running back market, which I think has probably been the most active, especially in the last day or so. It seems to have really hotted up. We've seen a carousel, really, of running backs moving around. But obviously, you mentioned Austin Eckler, moving over to the Commanders. A good move, I think. It'd be interesting to see, if he can stay healthy, and also if he can be as dynamic as we've seen him be. But we've got 4 really big moves, I think. First one being Saquon Barkley. Obviously, wow. I mean, Eagles have done amazingly well. I think, to me, that screams a change in the Eagles' offense. I think they knew, obviously, losing Jason Kelce, it just shows, to me, how important he was to that offense there, how much they didn't really need to rely on having sort of an esteemed running back. DeAndre Swift, he was good, but it wasn't amazing, just got his bum thrown over the line quite a few times. But losing a center like that, and then losing, some of the sort of guards that they had available as well, it takes a big toll. And I think we can see that now they're trying to evolve. You can't just rely on, this pocket and Jalen Hurts escaping it and making plays, because he couldn't do it this season. And they were so one-dimensional. And this seems to me like a really good trade. I'd give it a B+, maybe going on to an A. Obviously, he's had a tough season for the Giants, but I think it was time to move on. But for the Eagles, they could be flying again, don't you think?
Mate, this is a scary trade for me as a Cowboys fan. Every single team in the NFC East, bar the Dallas Cowboys, has gotten better. And I think that Philadelphia Eagles team has plugged a lot of holes.
Yeah.
Obviously, on the defensive side of the ball as well, they've got a new corner in CJ Gardner-Johnson, who we were all waving goodbye to at one point. But let's talk about
We didn't know he was going all the way to Philadelphia. He was just packing his bags.
But I think that move is a statement. Like you said, it's a change in how the offense is going to be run. Saquon Barkley, he's refusing to play on the franchise tag for another year in New York, and he deserved and wanted, really, a long-term contract, which is what he's got in Philadelphia. It's only 4 hours away, a little shorter drive, so it's not too bad for the American, but I think he's brilliant. His rookie season was electric, and every season since then, I think he's been very, very good. I just think it's that skill room now in Philadelphia is so scary. You've got Devonta Smith at wide receiver, AJ Brown at wide receiver, Jalen Hurts, like you mentioned, at quarterback. Now Saquon Barkley in the backfield, and is it Dallas Goedert at tight end as well? It's absolutely stacked.
Scary.
And like I said, it's not always about getting better. It's sometimes about not getting worse. But my God, the Philadelphia Eagles gotten better.
And I mean, we don't really want to see it in the NFC, to be honest with you. But I think you mentioned there. Let's talk about the Cowboys, actually, because another man who's made the move is Mr. Tony Pollard. I know, a man that you were a big fan of. What is going on at the Cowboys? I think they've been the least sort of active when it comes to this offseason. And, it's not like they had a great season last year, which you could point fingers at and say, they don't really need to make much change, because they really were sold short after the regular season that they had, don't you think?
For me, I understand moving on from Tony Pollard. I loved him when he was sort of sharing the snaps with Zeke. But he's not an A-gap runner. He's a C-gap runner, and the Cowboys used him a lot down the A-gap rather than getting him to the outside and making him run in open field, which is where he excels. And I think he's going to do absolutely brilliantly over in Tennessee. On the flip side of that, I wanted us to bring in a guy who could run in the A-gap in Derrick Henry. And what has he done? He's gone over to the Baltimore Ravens and made that team even more special. How do you stop now an RPO between Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson? They're the two most explosive runners in the league, and they're now on the same team behind that insane offensive line. I mentioned at the back end of last season, what more does Lamar need? But what more does Lamar need? Because my word, Derrick Henry on that team is going to be scary. King Henry is going to be back. He's going to be better than ever, in my opinion. That, for me, Taron, is the move of the offseason.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because, again, we mentioned what more does Lamar need? And I think you can't ask for any more now. A runner, he's not even a runner. He's just a steam train, an absolute steam train. I think, obviously, I'm not worried about the Titans in terms of the fact that Tajay Spears really took up the mantle when Derrick Henry was injured. I think he's going to have a big season this year. But Derrick Henry, we saw him as well. He was throwing passes into the end zone quite often, as well as running them in. This scares me for the Baltimore Ravens because, yes, they have the rookies in there. Obviously, OBJ does not look like he's going to be rejoining. Not surprised there. But I don't think they need him. I think they've got more than enough there. They could be making some trades. We don't know. But Derrick Henry, scary. Absolutely scary. And like you said, I mean, the only concern is if they start tush pushing, the last thing I want is Derrick Henry coming up behind me, because Lamar's knees could be gone. But you know what? If Jalen Hurts was all right, I think Lamar should be okay as well.
I think, yeah, mate, that team is going to be absolutely explosive for years to come now, depending on how, obviously, it's going to go well. Derrick Henry's a brilliant runner. That offensive line is absolutely superb. Lamar Jackson does what he does. And this year, obviously, you mentioned OBJ leaving, but this receiving core, this draft class for receivers is absolutely stacked. They don't need to worry. Even in the position that they are in the draft, they don't need to worry. They're going to get potentially a number one wide receiver really late on in the first round. I think it's going to be really, really exciting. And that Baltimore Ravens team is absolutely stacked. Now, they have lost the safety. I forget what safety they lost. I forget who they've lost. Geno Stone, that's it. They've lost Geno Stone at safety. Thank God I recovered that, because that would have been a stinker, right? He's gone to the Bengals. But they've still got Humphreys in the not in the backfield. What I'm talking. Oh, bro, I'm actually waffling. It's been too long since
I've done on back, can't you? We really are struggling here.
They've got him at safety, who's going to be absolutely electric, and he was electric in the championship game last season. But that Ravens team, he's going to be nasty, bro. This season, they are going to be pure filth.
Derrick Henry, A+. What an absolute acquisition that is. And again, I don't think we can glaze him anymore, because I'm scared. I'm scared for the season's come up, but I want it back. I really do want it back. Another running back, probably our last one to talk about, is Josh Jacobs going over to the Packers as well. Obviously, a bit of a wild move. I think, Josh Jacobs wasn't really as productive as he could have been with the Raiders, but I think they talked about the fact that, he's come out and said he expects a bit more loyalty from the Raiders after everything that went on. So some verbals there. It'd be interesting to see what comes out after that. But to the Packers, behind Jordan Love, I think that adds a lot more to the Packers team.
Mate, I love this trade. I think this is the most underrated free agent acquisition that's gone on. Obviously, on the same day that this move was made, you had all the other running backs, Saquon Barkley going to Philly. Obviously, there's more running backs to which Joe Mixon, for example, who we haven't mentioned, him finding a new home. But this is, for me, is the most underrated move entirely. It's brilliant from Green Bay. It's stupid from Las Vegas. But Josh Jacobs is going to have the opportunity to push for a Super Bowl now. Yeah. I really, 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 really strongly believe in that Green Bay team now. I think Jordan Love is absolutely sensational. He was at the back end of last season, and now having what, in my opinion, is a better running back than Aaron Jones, and upgrading that running back position behind what is still a fantastic O-line, that team is going to be dangerous next season, let alone any other team in the NFC. Last season, it was really the big three. There was the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers. This season, I can see the Dallas Cowboys dropping out of that big three and the Green Bay Packers moving in to take their place. It's going to be a big four this season. It's going to be the best four teams in the NFC. I'm telling you now, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, and then ultimately the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be the best four teams. They're going to be the teams to beat with a lot to prove. And that hurts to say as a Cowboys fan, but
I was going to say, mate, what's going on? What's up? Are you all right, mate? Everything okay at home?
we just haven't made any moves. And we're going to we're letting Tyron Smith walk, who's our premium left tackle.
You have made a move, though, because what's his name? Dak Prescott shaved off his beard and he's got a pedo stash now. So he's ready to cook.
Right, we were talking about shaving off beards, right, bro? Have you seen Jalen Hurts after he shaved off his beard?
Yeah.
He looks like a dad. He looks like a proper high school dad. Do you know what I mean? He's the worst one. You can't talk about Dak Prescott. I saw a tweet from Des Bryant actually that said, Dak, get ready for all the hate, get ready to take the blame, even though you've been put with no assets around you. It's gonna be Dak and CeeDee Lamb all the way. We're going to see how we go next season, bro. But yeah, I don't have high hopes at all.
Wow. A Cowboys fan without any delusion. This is a first, ladies and gentlemen. I can't believe it. This is box office stuff. Never been seen before.
Can tell we're not doing this for a while, bro. I'm getting delirious. That's what's going on. That's what's happening.
He's struggling. We'll move on. And we'll talk about the wide receivers. Obviously, you mentioned CeeDee Lamb there. A few assets, he could have done with a few more in the receiving corps. Obviously, we know the Cowboys room really stepped up for him. He just struggled in the end, really. But three, who I think obviously are big to talk about, Mr. Michael Pittman, not going anywhere, but re-signing for that Colts team. Obviously, Anthony Richardson should be back. Be really, really interesting. Obviously, they signed down, what's his name? What's the running back called? Jonathan Taylor. God, we are falling apart today. Do you reckon it's getting to us a bit?
I think it is, bro. And Zach Moss is leaving as well, I think.
Zach Moss has gone. So it leaves a lot more snaps for Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. But again, Michael Pittman, he's back. He's back with the Colts. How big of a move is that for that franchise? Because obviously he's been their star man. The issue was last season they did not put the ball in his hands when it mattered, when you need to for your big star receivers, your big star players. Do you think this re-signing says this is the man for us and this is the man who we're going to give the ball to?
Absolutely. And I can see him, like you mentioned, segueing over to Pittman. You mentioned CeeDee Lamb. I can see the Colts using him a lot like CeeDee Lamb. They're both very, very similar players. I think they've got elite route running and extremely high football IQ. They're not the biggest receivers, but what they do is technically brilliant. They catch the ball and their run after the catchability is fantastic. So I can see them using him a lot in the slot and a lot on the outside as well. But majority of the snaps I can see him taking in the slot, similar to what the Cowboys have done with CeeDee Lamb. And the production that he's had last season was absolutely sensational. So hopefully from a Indianapolis point of view, that can be mirrored and if not bettered. I can see him having a lot of receptions. Anthony Richardson needs that sure, ready, go-to receiver. And I think Pittman Jr. is going to be that. And I think it's going to be a really exciting time with those three that you mentioned, Anthony Richardson, Pittman, and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. Indianapolis is going to cook this year.
Another team who could be cooking, it's the London team that everyone says is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, they made some big sort of acquisitions, re-signings on the defensive side of it, which I think is quite interesting. But picking up Gabe Davis as well. Now, the Bills have had a right old clear out in this offseason. Very, very interesting. But Gabe Davis, I mean, he pretty much had a lot of the ball, more so than Diggs in a lot of the games. I think Diggs was not too happy about that either, aside from all the tight ends. But Gabe Davis going to the Jags, helps Trevor Lawrence out a bit more, I think. And it makes that wide receiver room very, very interesting, I feel, for the Jags.
What I think is going to happen, bro, I think let's stop talking about Gabe Davis because there's one move in Jacksonville that's got me really excited, and it's the return of Mac Jones, the Jacksonville Jaguars. What's going to happen? First week of the season, buddy, Lawrence is going to go down injured, and then Mac Jones is going to come in and just absolutely cook the entire division. I'm telling you now, bro, I have faith in Mac Jones and what he can do. So let's see what happens there. But I think that is a very, very underrated move, getting a young quarterback to learn, again, to learn from Trevor Lawrence, from Prince.
To learn how to throw a football. I think that's going to be very, very interesting.
Jarwin himself. But if Prince Jarwin decides to play a full season, we'll see. Obviously, we've seen how injury prone he can be at times. Then Gabe Davis is a very, very good weapon to throw the ball to. I don't really like the receiving core in Jacksonville. I think it's still up in the air about Calvin Ridley, whether he's going to re-sign or not, isn't it? If I'm right in saying that, I think it's more likely that he's not going to re-sign, and I don't think they should, because he's going to be asking for a lot of money for not a lot of production. So we'll see what happens in that situation. But yeah, the main move for Jacksonville for me was keeping Josh Allen on the defense, and the fact that they've managed to secure him elite. That's all they needed to do this offseason to stay a good team, and that's what they've done.
Well, one team that secured players, and then another team who secured them, and now could be letting them go, and that is the Bengals. T. Higgins. I was under the illusion when you mentioned it to me earlier. Oh, T. Higgins has requested a trade. I thought this was old news. God, no. T. Higgins said, "No, I've had enough." But I've been reading some interesting pieces about Joe Burrow and the injury that he sustained. It's a very, very rare injury, apparently, that he got with his throwing hand. And a lot of the doctors and specialists are saying that it could be career-ending in terms of his productiveness and sort of his throwing ability. And I wonder whether this might have had an impact on sort of the decisions being made there, because you don't know what could be going on behind the scenes as well.
I think when you're an organization who relies so heavy on a quarterback, like they've thrown all of their money, all their cap space into one man, into Joe Burrow, he has to come off. I love that man so much. I think on his day, he's the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion. I think next season, go away, Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow is going to come and cook. But if he can get over that injury, and that's a massive if, to be honest with you. Now that, obviously, the T. Higgins thing is very, very interesting. He's a number one receiver in his own right. And obviously, they have franchise tagged him, but he has requested a trade at the same time. My thinking behind that is very, very simple. They've got a better receiver in Jamar Chase, who's going to be asking for a lot of money, and he deserves a lot of money next offseason. So T. Higgins knows that if he stays in Cincinnati, he's going to have one season, and I think he needs that long-term security. And I don't blame him for going to find that from somewhere else, because he's not going to get that from the Cincinnati organization, who are notoriously stingy with money, more stingy than you, bro. I think their owners haven't invested in the facilities in forever. The showers don't work very well. I think they've had rats and stuff like that. They're just a manky, like a proper dirty organisation. So you go to someone's house sometimes, it's just a proper dirty gaff. A bit like, do you know when I went to yours the other week, I just thought, this dirty gaff.
I was waiting for it. I really was waiting for it.
Stinking, bro. But I think, when you give so much money to Joe Burrow, yes, he's elite. Yes, he's superb. Yes, he's the poster boy of the league for some people, for me especially. But he has to come off. He has to play a lot more. And he can't go for another season like he did last year. Or I can see him maybe, potentially, going somewhere else next offseason.
Well, maybe with the investment we get from this podcast and this episode, can buy an apartment and sort it out, mate. But two players who got some big money, unlike us, is two of on the defensive side of the ball. That's Chris Jones being one of them, returning to KC. He said after they won the Super Bowl, "I'm back, and we're here for a long time." His agent said, "Shut up, no, you aren't." But he is back, and Patrick Mahomes will be very happy about that. And I think the Chiefs organization very happy about that. That man is a dog. He's a beast. And you don't really want to lose him. You don't want to give him to any other franchise. How big do you think it is for him to return to the Chiefs? Because they want this three-peat really badly. And obviously, we've seen them drop a few of the players, a few, sort of their receiver threats, but staying strong in that defense, which I think pretty much, secured them that Super Bowl in the end. It was how strong they were on the D side of it. Obviously, Mahomes' magic in the Super Bowl, but staying strong on the D side. How big of a re-signing is that for the Chiefs?
It's absolutely massive, and it's a contract that's huge in itself, $100 million, and God, does he deserve it. And also another move, like you said, on the defense, keeping L'Jarius Sneed. That, again, in itself is a fantastic acquisition. But Jones in the Super Bowl, how good was he? Pressure in the face of Brock Purdy's last throw of the season, preventing that touchdown, which would have ultimately put the game on ice for you, Taryn. I think you're hating seeing him come back. I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic decision in the long term from the Kansas City Chiefs. But yeah, I think Mahomes is going to be smiling a lot more than you will be with that decision, bro.
Well, I'm not too sure about that because a man that he doesn't like has now been paired up with another man he doesn't like, and that is Chris Wilkins going over to the Raiders to join up with Max Crosby. Now, I know they have some past, but Mahomes has got to be worried because he's going to have Max Crosby trying to take his head off, and he's got Chris Wilkins going to be tickling him down below. What a signing I think that is. Obviously, Chris Wilkins, I think he was due a big payday. I think the Dolphins weren't really keen on keeping him on with how much he was asking for, but big signing for the Raiders and that Raiders D. But obviously, again, the issue is I'd be reluctant to say it's a blockbuster trade in the sense that their offense stinks and you can't win these games. Obviously, we've said defense wins championships, but you need the offense to win you some games.
Yeah.
So great trade for the defense. But God, they need a helping hand on that offense in Las Vegas.
That defensive line is going to be absolutely terrifying. Max Crosby on one side, and then obviously your man coming down the middle. He was brilliant for the Dolphins last season, and he was a good laugh as well. And you spoke high of that man throughout the season, Taron, and rightly so. The things that you can do for a good laugh in the NFL, it's missed sometimes. It really is missed, but he's going to bring a lot of joy to Las Vegas. And God, will they need it, because it's not going to be a good season for them at all, is it, bro? I think you alluded to it there. Defense wins championships, but to win championships, you've got to win games. And that offense is winning no games this season, bro.
Well, I'm still going to give it an A+ because I really love that, man. Bring on Chris Wilkins. Keep cooking, Raiders. Keep cooking. Wow. Let's have a breathe for a second, because that was a shambles of a podcast, but we got through it anyway, because God, what is going on, mate? This is why the Brits don't talk about American football.
There's been no structure. You've provided a bit yourself, I must say. I'm being harsh there. You've done very well. But God, have I been waffling for 47 minutes. Fuck me, God.
Do you think this is to do with the off season? Let's skip over to the sideline, mate, and talk about this. The sideline question of this week. The off season's got us tripping. It's got us falling apart, but I think we'll come back stronger. But if it was up to you, mate, what changes would you make to the NFL offseason and sort of all these trades and acquisitions going on? What would you change to make the NFL better?
I think it's fantastic that we're learning about all these trades and about all these acquisitions, but I reckon they just completely keep it hush. No one knows a thing what's going on. And you turn up day one, week one, you've got Scott Hansen on your TV, and you suddenly find out that your quarterback is Russell Wilson, or you've lost Dak Prescott, or you've got Mac Jones starting under center in Jacksonville. That's what we need. From now on, I think we need a petition. No more, as much as I love Ian Rappaport, we need no more NFL insider information. We turn up week one to see who's on the field. That is the best way to decide to make this offseason a little bit more bearable, is knowing the excitement that some teams are going to get when you turn up and you see your elite players, your favorite players from different teams playing for your organization. I think, that for me, keeping it all hush in the offseason and turn up week one, not knowing who your starting team's going to be. That would make it a bit more exciting. But what about you, bro? If you've got any ideas about how we can make the offseason a little bit more exciting or a little bit more bearable for us fans?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to hear that Ian Rappaport and Shams aren't getting a job now because you just bond them off out of it. But I think it'd be really interesting, like you said there, to sort of wait until, can you imagine first game? You know how they have like the walkouts and all the players come out? Imagine just get a tune, but just 50 Cent, Many Men. And you just got, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes just walks out for you and you're a Raiders fan. Oh, mate. Be crazy. I think that is the best idea that I've heard.
That'd be so cool. Yeah. Oh no, bro. That's
I'm gassed about that. I think it's a great idea. Bring it to the Premier League here. Let's get that going. I think a really good sort of idea to sort of change it all is, I think they should have the players do like these little personality interviews. Like, you know, when we do, like, for example, when a player signs, you have like player interviews and they're talking about themselves and everything like that and all these behind the scenes nonsense. Imagine if we got that for like the draft prospects. I'd love to see in the day of a life of like Caleb Williams, and then I can decide whether he is an absolute knob and whether I want him to join. Imagine them just vlogging. Be like, oh, Sam Hartman just having a little vlog. I know he's a good looking man, but that's all I can look past. I need to know what this brother's got going on. Otherwise, I don't want to sign him. Imagine if that was a content we got for now. It's just these fellas playing with their dogs. We're like, you know what? He plays with his dogs. Get him as my quarterback. I think we need that. I want player diaries. Get that introduced. Be absolutely brilliant.
You're just a TikTok fanboy, you bro. You're always pushing the TikToks on the pod. I think it's an interesting idea, a very unique idea. You see it in the Prem, though, don't you? You see it when you get those. Do you know what the announcement videos in the Prem? They will be elite. Do you know what I mean? Get them in the whoever the admin is for Burnley. Get him on the Houston Texans.
I'm sure I have the contact details for that as well. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. They actually would as well. I think that would be I like, as much as I hate it, I also really like the idea as well, bro. So let's improve the league. I think why not? Why can't we improve it? It's a couple of British lads. Yeah. Why the hell not? Maybe because we're British, actually.
Yeah, maybe we should make our own personality videos for the podcast. Maybe that will push it a bit more.
Let's not take the piss here.
Yours will be 5 seconds because you have no personality, pal. But might be a good 5-minute monologue.
You don't need a personality when you're over 6 foot, bro. Yours will be 5'11", man.
Moving on that bombshell, we're going to move on. We're going to wrap up on what's been free agency acquisitions left, right, centre. I think we've acquired our own sort of chaos in the midst of all this as well. But we thank you for joining us on this content spree, providing us for the next few weeks. And I hope it's provided a bit more enjoyment for everything that's gone on in the past few weeks. We know the draft is coming up soon. We know the pro day is coming up soon. There's plenty more to talk about. And as always, we're back, we're ready, and we hope to change it all for the NFL as Brits sitting here in our wonderful, wonderful cold rooms. And again, if you want any merch, you can see it right there. Hit us up in the DMs. We'll get it sorted for you. Thank you, everybody. We shall see you next time because we send you back for more on this podcast. And as always, we'll see you on the next podcast of the All Out Brits podcast. Thank you very much.